Hi everyone, welcome to this new CAD series. In each part of this series, you will learn some new fundamental topics about computer-aided design. So today's obviously the first part of it, and so we're gonna begin with some 2D aspects of CAD, some basic 2D aspects. We're gonna start first with the intro to software that we're gonna use, that's called Onshape. We're then gonna talk about sketching, constraining, and dimensioning. Those are the main things that we're going to cover today. But a little bit about me. Hi, my name is Shrikar Yuranti. I'm currently a sophomore, and I like to do coding and robotics in my free time. So yeah, that's just a bit about me. And before we jump into the content, first let's talk about the software that we're going to use today. So for the first few parts of this CAD series, we're going to use a software called Onshape. And once we begin to dive into some of the more complex topics, so maybe around the fourth part of this series, we'll switch over to a different software called Autodesk Inventor. Now both of these softwares are technically free for students. However, to get like an Inventor license, it can be a bit more difficult, or there's more steps in the process. So we can approach that when the time is right. But for right now, we can begin with Onshape and make a free account. So we can head over to google.com and simply search up onshape.com and click enter. So let's walk through everything. So yes, first we go to www.onshape.com. Then you can see the sign in button here. Click on sign in. And then as you can see, I already have an account, but if you don't have an account, then you can click on sign up. And here you can see the different options. So let's go with the education account. And then you can basically complete all of these details, and I believe that there's a second page, and there are a couple more details that you need to fill out. And then once you get like all approved for the account, you can go back to the main onshape.com and then click on sign in. And then you can sign into your account basically. Okay, so now that we've made an account for Onshape, let's first go over what CAD is. CAD is called Computer Aided Design. And you might be wondering, what is it? CAD is used in many different companies and fields to create, modify, and optimize various designs, products, and parts basically, and it can be used to create different parts and products. And why is it useful, you might ask? Well, CAD is a great skill to know if you want to pursue careers in manufacturing or like engineering in the future. And you can create and test fit your own parts. You can make your own creations and then even potentially 3D print them. So it's a cool little way to make your own things. And then how can you actually do CAD? You can use free software like Onshape or something like Inventor as well. There are also a couple other kinds like SolidWorks or Fusion 360. But the two I would say are the best in my opinion is Onshape and Inventor. So on with the tutorial. So first we're gonna begin with the UI of Onshape. And obviously to get into the UI of Onshape, we first need to go to the main page, right? So once you sign in, you can see that I already have a couple of the projects here, but you probably will have like a blank screen here. So you can simply click on create, and then you can create a new document. So I'll just call this project 1, and then you can just say create public document. So now we have a new Onshape project opened up. So let's go more into the UI. So the first main part of the UI of Onshape is the modeling viewer cube in this corner, in the top right corner here. This allows you to look at different faces of your object. Currently we don't have an object obviously, but if we click on this drop down, we can go into like the isometric view, the dimetric view, and really you just need to know, how do I like select these different faces and view at it from a different from like a different point of view basically. And then if you want to zoom in or zoom out, you can just use like your scroll wheel. So that's basically what this cube does. It just like lets you look from different point of views at your object or your plane. The second main aspect is the left pane here. As you can see, currently we only have 3 items here. But if I was to add a sketch, for example, on the front plane, and I will get into how to add a sketch in a few minutes, but let's just say that I was to add a sketch. You can see, oh, now the sketch is here, right? Let's say that I click X to cancel the sketch, it's now gone. So essentially, you can view all the changes to your CAD file in that area, and you can keep track of other changes as well. And now a sketch is a rather big change, but you can also keep track of smaller things like extrusions or like different small features as well. So that's a really cool way to stay like organized. The next main part is the top bar. So here you can basically view all the controls for both 2D sketching and for the 3D mode. So let's just say that we again create a new sketch on the front plane, right? You can see that we have this whole new set of tools. Now for me right now, I am actually in split screen mode. So some of these have some more drop downs, but depending on, you know, how like this is open, how your Chrome is open, you might not be able to see everything at once, so you might have to click on like a drop down, but essentially everything will be in this region. So for example, this is a shape that I can draw, and if I was to cancel out of the sketch, these are all the 3D commands that you can also use, and we'll get into some of these 3D commands in future parts, but yeah, basically all of the main commands are stored in this top bar above here. So now let's get into sketching. Sketching is the very core of basically CAD, right? You need to create a 3D object. It has to start from something, and that something is a 2D object. And to create this said 2D object, we need to first draw it out and sketch it. So that's essentially what we do with sketches. So here, if we just create a new project, right? This is as if I've done nothing. So maybe I was just playing around with the cube before. So I've done nothing in this project so far. You can see no changes. Now I can click on this create new sketch button. So let's just maybe make a sketch on the front plane. So I can simply click on the front plane over here. And now I have a sketch on this plane. Now you might be wondering what the planes are, right? So there are 3 planes in real life, obviously. You have the X, Y, and the Z plane. And then each plane represents like an aspect sort of the 3D world. And at least in Onshape, they're called the front, top, and the right plane. But for example, various softwares like Fusion, they call it X, Y, and Z. So yeah, and you can basically create a 3D sketch on a plane. So again, if I was to cancel out of the sketch, I can click on the new sketch and I can make it on the front plane, for example. So I'll do that one more time just to show you guys. So for example, let's say that I'm back on the main page, right? I can select this project one. Then I can make a new sketch on front. And then after creating the said part on, for example, the front plane here, we can extrude it and then make it 3D. And then I'll go more into depth on how you can make it 3D in the future, but that's also one thing that you can do. So next are the simple sketching tools, right? So again, now that you've created a sketch on the front, I just showed you there again how to make a sketch. We can now draw things on it, right? So we can make rectangles, lines, circles, arcs, splines, and many other things. I mean, there are a lot of different things that you can do, and even within this, there are many like sub functions that you can do. But we'll just start off simple with a simple square or like a rectangle. So I'll just make a simple box over there. And there, yeah, again, as I was saying, there are many things that you can do. You know, you've got like various kinds of polygons and conics and arcs, and I will go in depth into some of those in more future videos. But for right now, let's just look at lines and squares. So let's say that I want to make maybe like a line from the center to here or something like that. So next, let's go into dimensioning and constraining. Now, dimensioning and constraining have a lot in similar to sketching. They work together, and you'll see how shortly here. So what is dimensioning, right? The definition of dimensioning, at least in the CAD terminology, is you can select an object or property and then you give it some value, right? So if you have a, you know, if you want to make something angled, like a trapezoid, and you're trying to determine the angle of the trapezoid or some sort of object that you might have, you can like assign the angle to be 45 degrees or 60 degrees or something like that. Or if you want to set the length of a side length. So for example, here, I'll just show you right now. So here's the dimension tool. So again, it's in your top bar. You can like go over and you can see, okay, that's the dimension tool, right? So I can select this line here. So currently I selected like the dimension tool, and then I can select this line, and then you can see how it says 1.38 blah 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 inches, right? So maybe I want to make this 3 inches, right? I can simply like click 3 and press enter. Now this dimension is 3 inches. And let's say that I want to make the side dimension only 2 inches. I just click 2, then I click enter. So this is a simple example of how you can assign the side length of like the shape to 3 inches and 2 inches. And you can do the same in many ways. If you're making a circle, you can determine like the diameter that you can assign like a bigger value, smaller value, or like an angle, as I said earlier. So same thing with this line, right? Let's say, so again, let's touch back on the cube viewer. So let's say that, you know, I'm not liking this angle, like it's kind of difficult to see. I can click on front, and now I can see it from this point of view, so it's easier for me to watch. So maybe I want to dimension the angle here to be, you know, 45 degrees instead of 47, blah, blah, blah. So I just click 45 and I click enter. Now it's 45 degrees. And let's say I want this line to be a bit shorter. You know, that's 1.97 inches. It's a bit too long. Let's say I want it to be 0.75 inches, right? I can just hit 0.75 and click enter. So now I've dimensioned this line to be 45 degrees, and it's also 0.75 inches. And one more thing that you might be wondering is, I said this side was 3 and I said that this side was 2. But then how did these other sides also become the same value? Now this is again specific to this. Okay, so when we first drew it, we used a corner shape, right? So Onshape recognizes the fact that you used this specific object, and it says, oh, the user made this side 3 inches, then this side is also automatically going to become 3 inches because of the kind of shape that it is. So that's just something the software does for you like automatically, so you don't need to make this side 2 inches and this side 3 inches like as well. But if you want to like double check and just be sure, you can again select the dimension tool, then select this bottom line here and drag it out, and you can see that's also 3 inches. So we know for sure that's 3, and this is also 2 for sure. So now you can be assured that it's the correct sizes. But basically, depending on the shape that you draw with, some values will be the same. So now let's get into constraining. Constraining also has to do with mainly sketching, not so much dimensioning. And there are many kinds of constraints. Some include perpendicular constraints, tangent, parallel, and there are many more, as you can see in this picture here. And to access the constraints, we can see this drop-down menu here, and you can see all of these different kinds. So some of the basic ones are obviously parallel and perpendicular. So let's go back to front view, right? Let's say I'm just to draw 2 very obscure random lines here. So let's just draw 2 random lines. And I want them to be parallel for some given reason, right? So I can simply select on the parallel tool. Then I select this and I select this. You notice how they're like, notice how they were highlighted. So let me undo that. And again, I select the parallel tool, and then that's highlighted, this is highlighted. Now they're parallel, and I didn't have to do anything. Now they're just automatically parallel. So that's sort of what a constraint does. Now that's a parallel constraint. So let me undo that and undo that. Now let's say that we have 2 lines jointed something like that, right? We can simply then go to perpendicular. Now this obviously doesn't look like it's perpendicular. This is not a perfect 90 degrees. If we want to make it perfect 90 degrees, it's very simple. We can just click on this and click on this. Now it's 90 degrees and it's perpendicular. So that worked out well. So that's basically some basic constraints. There are many kinds. So as you can see, you know, like tangent has to do with circles, concentric sort of also has to do with circles and arcs. So those are some of the more complex ones, but you'll generally use parallel and perpendicular or even equal quite often. So yeah, that's what constraining is basically. So next, let's talk about some bonus concepts. So I just want to quickly touch on face planes and offset planes in this in the first part as well. But before we jump into that, so let's say that this is like our final and done sketch, right? So we're satisfied with this 3x2 square, and you know what, let's just delete this line. I don't really want this line here. I just drew it just as like an example. But let's say that we're just satisfied with a 3x2 sketch. When we're done with the sketch, we see this check mark, right? I mean, I moved it here below, it might be here, whatever. You can just simply click on the check mark, and now we're done. We're back at the main page, and you can see the sketch on the front plane. So now let's get into face planes and offset planes. Face planes let you create planes on objects which are already 3D, and offset planes let you create planes a given distance away from a main object or 3D object. Now that probably didn't make much sense to you, and that makes sense, that's fine. So let me even explain again what a plane is. Currently we have 3 planes, right? We have the front, top, and right. Now you might be wondering, where are like all these 3D object planes coming from, right? So let me show you. So so here you can see the extrusion tool, right? Extrusion is a tool that is used to make a 2D object become 3D. Now I'm going to explain this more in depth in the second tutorial, but I just want to quickly touch on face planes and offset planes as they have a lot to do with sketching. But you can just know that you can just click on extrude on any object, and then you can say, for example, I want to make it, a 3x3x2 square. So I give the depth of the extrusion 3 inches. Now it's 3 inches in this direction. It's 3 inches in this direction, and it's 2 inches in this direction. So I have a 3x3x2 square, right? So now I have an object here. You don't really have to understand how that occurs. Again, I will explain that in the next tutorial. But now let's go back to the face plane, right? Let's say that you want to add something on this. Maybe you're building, a building or something. You want to add something on this. Or maybe you want to subtract something. Again, we'll go over subtracting in the next tutorial. Currently, we have a box, right? Maybe you want to make a circle on it and then make a hole in it or something like that, right? To do that, you can simply click on sketch again. But now you have more choices. You don't necessarily have to do it on the front plane, top plane, or the right plane. You can make it on this face. So that's why it's called a face plane. You can make it on this, you can make it on this. And let's say that we go to bottom view, right? So let's go down to the bottom. Heck, you can make it here, here. You can make it really like basically wherever you want on this object. But let's say that I want to make it on the top here, right? I can simply select the top, and now I have a plane on top of it, right? So I've created a new plane on this 3D object. It's not on any of the 3 original planes. So that's something super cool that I can do. So I can add more 3D material here, maybe I'm making like a tower, a building or something, or I can even subtract some material from here. So that's how face planes work. And if you're still a bit confused about it, once you understand how extrusions work, hopefully it'll make more sense. Basically what you're doing is you're taking a 2D sketch that you made on these original 3 planes, you're making that into 3D using this extrusion tool, and then on the 3D object you're essentially creating another sketch, and that's created on a face plane, which can occur on any of these. Now let's talk about offset planes. You can find offset planes underneath here. It's called offset surface. In different softwares they call it offset planes, but really they mean the same thing, right? So let's say that I select this offset surface here, right? Let's say that maybe I'm building, okay, let's just go with like the building example. I'm building some skyscraper or tower or something, right? And I don't want to work on the center of the tower. I want to save that for tomorrow, and let's say that I want to work on the top of it, right? I can select this side, and then I can say, okay, maybe my tower is going to be, 10 inches high in the air, right? And then this essentially is going to create a plane 10 inches away from where this existing face is. So what an offset plane does is it takes your face plane and then adds a number of inches or some distance to it, and then creates a plane far away from it. So this could be 0.25 inches away, or it could be 250 inches away. That's really up to you and how you want to do it. So this works again like a normal plane and a normal surface. So I can, for example, again, let's touch back on face planes, right? I can make a plane here, I can make a plane here, I can make a sketch here, another sketch here, here. But now that I created a new thing here, I can also create a sketch on this. So now if I zoom out a bit, you can see that a new sketch has been created up here, right? So here I can draw a bigger rectangle or something, or like anything I want really. So that's basically what an offset plane is. So just to summarize what an offset plane does, you essentially take a face plane, but then you move it a given distance away so you can work on something in a different location. So that's something really cool as well. So let's just go over some of the concepts that we talked about today. First, we talked about the Onshape UI. So, sorry, let me just X out of this. So we have the left pane where we keep of all the changes, right? So we can see all the changes. Here we can see the extrusion that I made to make it 3D, this offset surface that I made up here, the sketch that I made here. We can see everything here. So that's how the left pane works. Then the modeling cube viewer to change my point of view and how I can see things. This side, that side, whatever I would like. And then the top bar. Either in sketch mode or in 3D mode, I have a bunch of controls that I can make up here. And then the next main thing we covered was sketching. So creating a sketch on either of these planes like this, or creating a sketch on this, or really anything, just creating sketches in general. And then the next main thing was dimensioning. So let's quickly go over dimensioning again. Let's say that I just have a small little box here, and I want to, make this, like 4 inches. I just click 4, enter. Now it's 4 inches in that dimension. So that's also dimensioning. And then constraining, making something perpendicular, which also means making the two lines 90 degrees, or maybe making two lines parallel to each other, equal to each other. So, basically a few different constraints. And then the next thing we also covered were face planes. So face planes are sketches or planes that you create on a face of a 3D object. So if you ever taken a simple geometry class or like a math class, you would know that each object has a certain amount of faces, right? So this has this number of faces, and you can create a sketch on any of the face basically. That's a face plane. And then basically the final topic is the offset plane. You can think of an offset plane as a plane a given distance away from a face plane. So maybe 200 inches or 2 inches. Again, up to you, and you can create it anywhere you want from a 3D object. So this was the first CAD video in the series. There will be more to come in the future. In the next one, we're gonna go over 3D parts of CAD. So thank you for watching, and you can go to www.stemfairs.com for more information about the virtual STEM Fair program or more about this. And once again, thank you for watching.